Hi everyone, my name is Indigo. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Ms. Jackie, for inviting me out tonight. I'm pretty nervous because I'm going first, but I really just wanted to start off by just thank you guys for this event tonight. And I love the name, How to Build a Fire, because I like to play with fire. Not literally, but maybe it's my moon is Sagittarius, always an adventurer, a wandering spirit. And I learned to use my escapism to kind of capture and unleash other layers of myself that were buried. And every now and again, I find a new place and I find a new layer of self. And when you ask the question, what inspires me, one of those things has to be traveling. Another thing is just my spirituality and I say I co-create with my spirit, and that's inspiring. And just being a wanderer, is very freeing, but it can also be a lonely road sometimes. But I usually choose the road less traveled. And tonight I just want to give you, take you guys on this road with me, this journey. So back in 2019, I decided to leave New York City. I think I got laid off of work, and I'm like, I want to go to LA. I want to take my dreams to LA, build my business from the ground up again, and really get it back into acting, get back into the arts somehow. I was done with it, needed somewhere new. And this is not new to my family and friends that are on here, because I kind of just go with the wind. So I'm like, how do I go? I don't have a place to stay. And this was just a last minute decision. I prayed and I asked God, like, if there's a way, you'll make it happen. And I spoke to a friend. He said, listen, I have an apartment. I'm not even there. I'm in another state. You take the, I'll send you the keys, go there and, pay me the rent, and that's it. And so it just happened to be that I was led there, right? So I had a blast in LA, got a job quick, and just really, really having a great time exploring all the beautiful things, the beaches, the weather, everything else that California has to offer. And then the pandemic hits in the beginning of the 2020. It was going great, January, February, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, right? So the pandemic hits and we're on lockdown and we're on curfew and nobody knows what is going on. The world is in a whole frenzy, right? And I'm like, what the heck? Okay, I just got out here, I'm new here. And then this happens, I'm far from my family. I don't have friends out here. Maybe know a few people, neighbors, just networking. So around this time, the pandemic happens. I found out that my aunt passed away, God rest her soul. And it wasn't due to COVID at all. And also, like a week after that, I found out my friend was actually in a hospital, literally dying from COVID, right? And she really was like a really close friend of mine. And I really had to get her out of that slump because she couldn't talk because she had tubes down throat. So we were just literally texting, sending voice notes. And I'm just encouraging her because she's like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength. So I took all of me to encourage her. Fortunately, she was able to get out the hospital and she's doing well today. Then right after that, her grandfather, who's really a grandfather figure to me as well, passed away from COVID as well. So at that time I was severely depressed, going through all of that, plus feeling like I'm in jail, prison, in these four walls because I couldn't go many places. And, the effects of the beginning of the pandemic and how that went about. And I decided to, ran across on Instagram Taraji P. Henson, the actor, if you guys know her. She had posted something about the Boris L. Foundation that was giving, I think 7 sessions, therapy sessions to people of color. And I think I needed it because I was really feeling like I was snapping. I was not myself. I was out of it. I was literally just gone. I didn't recognize my actions or myself. And so I ended up connecting with a really great therapist, Angela Moe, shout out to her, out of California. And she really helped me just to process my feelings during this pandemic and just everything that was happening around me, and to really just be present and really acknowledge what was going on. With Angela, that was my therapist at the time. My mom called me, was like, hey, you need to come back to the East Coast. Like, we don't know what's going on in the world. We love you, we need to come back home. And I did need some hugs. I needed that warm love. I needed, like, you know, people who love me and care about me, my friends and my family. It wasn't on the West Coast. So I really didn't want to go. My mom begged me and literally set up some nice incentives for me to come. I'm like, okay, I'll go. So I flew back in the height of the pandemic and went to South Carolina, where my dad and my mom lives out there. And I feel like the first few months was a little rocky, but I spoke with my therapist and we just worked on goals. And I said, you know what? I don't know what's gonna happen. I wanna put out something to the universe. I have this book I've been working on for years and I never put it out. I always start things and never finish. And so we worked on little small goals. And in 2020, I released my first baby, my first book, Prelude to Love, which is a poetry book. It's on Amazon, by the way. And it was like birthing, it was something that was already in me and that I had already, but I just kept procrastinating and fear kept coming over me. And I never was able to release this because I was living in fear for so long. So I finally pushed that baby out of me. And once that baby came out and I just started to birth a new creative mojo that I didn't have since college, I started to create my YouTube channel while in quarantine. I curated a couple of events, one of them being my live podcast and some other events with the friends, even live open mics I've done online. And yeah, I felt like I got my mojo back and I was really in the swing of things and I was no longer living in fear, because I'm like, I want to live, I don't know how long we're here on this earth. Like, my friend almost passed and my grandma, my aunt, and I wanted to leave a mark here on this universe, and I can't have fear hold me back at all. So I decided to take a leap of faith and I put that book out. Once I put that book out, everything else started to flow. Everything started to flow. I really did a really great job with the sales, which was surprising to see all the lovely support that I've gotten from it. And yeah, so 2020, that year, though it represented a lot of turmoil for a lot of us, a lot of chaos, it really was my year of freedom, my year of faith, my year of letting go. And that year of faith, that faith followed me up until now for somehow. And during that time, my close friends had became my family, literally during this time, just talking with them and us checking on each other's mental health. And so that was great. Yeah, the rest of the 2020 was actually really weird because for a lot of people, they may have not had a great, turnaround in their 2020, but I actually can blessed to say that I actually had a great middle to end where I was really in my creative bag, and thank God for that. And then I made a promise to God. I said, I want to always, as long as you keep giving me the magic and this mojo, I promise to always co-create with spirit and co-create and make whatever it is I'm making with spirit, because it's always in divine timing. It is never, I don't want to follow someone else's lead or what I feel. I want to go with my gut, with my spirit, no matter how long it takes, right? And so that had been really, great for me. So South Carolina really is the state that I call my freedom state right now, because that's where a lot of things, I got my first LLC going, my business bank account. I was just like, wow, I didn't think, I was told you I was living in fear for so long. I didn't think all these things would happen. fast forward to 2021 this year. Before 2021, I have been saying, hey, I've traveled all around the world. Well, I wouldn't say the States, right? Because I'm a wandering gypsy, as they say, right? So I'm in South Carolina, but I'm researching and I'm like, I want to get out the country. I want to go somewhere. I don't care if it's the beginning in the height of the pandemic or whatever. I'm ready to go. I want to just fly free because sometimes I feel I need to escape things. And though people may think escapism is negative, for me, it was a positive thing for me because I feel like I literally find a new piece of me every time I go somewhere. It's like a new layer of me I discover. And I researched places to go, and I looked on the list of several countries that didn't need like a test to go into, and definitely Merida, Mexico was on that list. And so I went to Merida, Mexico back in, I want to say May. Everyone thought I was crazy for going, of course. Like, I'm going by myself. I don't care. I did my research. I'm gonna go. Like, you know, it was just me following spirit again, right? And co-creating again with spirit because I had trust and faith that everything was gonna be okay. In Mexico, I had a lovely time. I was there for 2 months. I got cut short. I literally saved my savings to go. And the reason why I really went, it was a last minute decision. Even though I was researching it before, I was gonna go at the end of the year, but my lease was up. And I was like, where am I going? Where am I gonna go? What am I gonna do? And instead of just finding a place to stay, I said, fuck it, I'm gonna go, excuse my language, I'm gonna go to Mexico, I'm gonna do it, right? But I really had a great time. I was in the Yucatan state, which is a lot of the Mayan culture there, the Mayan civilization. So I learned a lot of culture. I learned that even though I don't know the language very fluent in Espanol, I've learned that music is definitely a universal language because even I was in my Uber car and we're listening to music and we're jamming and we're smiling at each other. And, you know, even though I say, "Tu habla inglés?" and they say no, I'm waiting for them to say sí, but sometimes they don't. I learned that, you know, is more than just a native tongue thing, like literally how music bring everyone together, so beautiful. And I've been to different events and just had the camaraderie because of it. Also, I met a lot of expats out there who were just like me, and I became a part of like a Facebook chat, a community. I met this guy out there that was really a great guy. He's like, hey, like, I see you from America, what's going on, where you from? And he ended up being from South Carolina too. So we had a little bond and we would go out and hang out, and he introduced me to the Facebook community group that was very resourceful, but I had a really beautiful time there. And I'm so happy I went and I followed my gut, even though everyone was like, no, don't go, or you're crazy. Like, what is going on with you? And I just, it just showed me that, see, playing with fire isn't bad after all. Like, you can either blow up the house or you can use that fire to create a bomb meal in the kitchen. Like, these are my meals I got out of there. So also, I wanted to say, in Mexico, I was writing my second book, I Manifest, which is a manifestation guide that in journal. I started writing that in Mexico, and after Mexico, I came to Florida with a friend, another place I know. I finished publishing this book in Mexico. So that was the birth, like everything that I was experiencing and just manifesting whatever I set my words to, making it come into fruition. This book was just the birth of that, of those experiences. I Manifest, and it's called The Manifestation Guide and Journal for the Go-Getter. Again, it's on Amazon as well. Yeah, so those books were my ticket to my meals. So I'm just so grateful for, you know, those traveling experiences the last 2 years, and just how those things inspired me. And I would like to share a piece with you guys, because I think I was so stuck in fear before, because I was worried about time. Like, Am I getting old, too old for this? Is this the right time? Maybe it's not. Instead of just going, like just going with my spirit, I was just always worried about, you know, is it enough time? So I'm going to share a piece with you guys called The Essence of Time. And I hope you guys can relate to this. Let me just get ready for it really quick. I might be staring at my phone because I don't know it by heart. So please bear with me. This is the essence of time. Maybe I'm obsessed with time. What time are these blessings coming? Because I ain't got time to be living here in poverty. Wealth takes time and my time is getting old. I have to manifest these goals right on time before my time goes. Just give me a little more time. Time to prevail, time to grow, time to change with the seasons. But you keep whispering that the time is now. But I'm scared of the time. Don't want to go back to old times. A new time has arisen and I want to take my time to learn this new moment of time. So much to do, so little time. I want to get it right before the end of time because when I'm gone, all that will be left is the times. When I reach God, I will know that this time never existed at all. Time never healed these wounds. Time never waited for me. Time goes and never comes back. Always on time and never in between. The distance carries time and every minute of time keeps me on my feet. Despising the time, never catching it on time, hoping that that true one comes in time, but maybe that time has passed and I'm still dwelling on that time, wanting it to come back once more, huh? One more chance, one more time. Biggie wasn't allowed, but his legacy lives throughout time. What about my time? When will I be brave enough to take advantage of this time? Tired of waiting for the divine time. Is it selfish to want my time? I'm devoted to finding the time, traveled across the ocean just to renew time. Maybe I'll save time being 3 hours behind so that I can make more time. Staring at these four walls, watching the time go by, waving his hands to the next hour, midnight, Sunday, power, time. Get lost in stars to avoid eternal time. I want more and more as I get close to time. Praying above, please grant me a peaceful, prosperous, perfect time that I could show myself bearing all this time. Is there anybody out there that can relate to time? Money on my mind almost all the time. In the end, I'm just trying to survive. I want to survive this time, this moment, but life keeps on timing me. Why is this time torturing me, rushing me to my divine destiny? It was all a matter of time, all a matter of whys and whos and where and why don't I just give up this time? Maybe time is inevitable, even if it doesn't exist. Maybe I shouldn't persist rather than just wait for time. Allow the time to be timed. Never look at the clock, just live within it and hope for the best of times. Paint these perfect pictures of memories in lapse time. I feel you, you're near time, chasing every second of it, filling it up with joy and peace and love. That's all I wanted all this time. A home to enjoy the time, but the time never loved me. It just keeps on looking forward. It's 11:11. Make that wish in time. Time, time, time. Is it perfect for you? Is it perfect for me? Does it have any use? What would you do without time? Never grow old, forever young? I wanna be forever young, forever and ever young. On my mind all the time, in my fields all the time, writing captures time. These bills are due in time, making up the time, giving up this time. I'm going back in time, starting over this time, feeling this time, believing this time, granted this time, got that overtime. Getting ahead of time now is slowing down. I'm in sync with time, no longer wasting time. My time can't be borrowed. I'm alive in this time. I'm free this time. Nothing keeping me abound. Taking the leap forward in hopes that you remember the times. Reclaiming my time, and this is the end of time. That's all.
Whoa,
Thank you,
baby.
guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Indigo. Thank you for inspiring us and telling us your story. I'm gonna have to think about what I did during the pandemic, but I definitely didn't do all of that. So thank you for sharing with us. And okay, I'm gonna bring Lily up and she's gonna
Thank you so much.
the next storyteller.
All right, this woman, the next storyteller, I have known for many years. She hails from the Midwest, as do I. And when I met her, she was a percussionist, and then suddenly she was singing everywhere in New York. She's been lately doing great things. She's on the staff of Juilliard, right? And also is currently an artist in residence for the Plymouth Church in Brooklyn Heights. She makes art as well. Lately, she's also been a cultural ambassador for India, Indonesia, and did I need to turn this on? Okay. Cultural ambassador for India, Morocco, and Indonesia, doing collaborations with people there, diverse communities. Put our hands together for PAULA Bennett.
To the heavens, to the earth, to gravity. I dedicate this tale to all the drummers and all the creatures who love it. Once upon a time, a baby was born in the city of Cleveland, Ohio. She was born to a mother and father who loved music, whose mother had been a singer with a big orchestra, singing the great American jazz song. So she was raised in a house of music. But this story is not about me, that baby. This story is about a drummer, a teacher. Speak louder. Well, get close, shall I get closer? Okay, so this story is my story, but it is also a story of drum. A drummer, a teacher, a boss, a band leader, and now a spirit. So as I grew up, I was in this jazz household, and one might say that I was a jazz baby. And everywhere I was in my house, there was music. There was music playing, there was music sung, and I was singing too. And at that time, before karaoke, we used to sing to a thing called Music -1, which were tracks that you could listen to that were recorded and you would add your voice to. And my parents thought that a really good time was singing along to these tracks. So that's how I learned to sing jazz. But I was also a very rhythmic kid. When I was in my crib, I would get on the edge of the crib and grab onto the bars. And my parents said, that kid's got rhythm. Look at that kid. Like I'd listen to the music. Well, that led to me being very interested in playing music. So when I was a kid, I sang. I sang in the church. I did vocal competition. I danced, some modern dance, some ballet, a little bit. And I also played the piano, but that didn't stick. What I really wanted to do was play the drums. I wanted to play percussion. So that was always in my mind. And then one day, I was dancing in a dance class, and there was a live drummer, and I said, that's what I'm going to do. So I started to make that happen. I guess I was about 23 years old, something like that. Oh yeah, I forgot to say that my dad at that time was listening to music at home, and not just jazz, not just swing, like traditional stuff like that. He was also listening to something called so that started to get in the mix of what I was doing. It started to get in my spirit. It started to get into my head. So there was a little of that Brazilian kind of vibe coming into the jazz that I was listening to, and the drumming that I was starting to do. And at that time, I got the idea that I needed to go and hear music in other cities. So I was in Cleveland, Ohio. We didn't think anything of getting in the car and driving to go hear music. I drive to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I drive to Detroit, Michigan. I'd come to New York City, and I came to New York City, and I went to the Village Gate, an old jazz club in New York, and I heard a great jazz band. And that night on the stage was Thrum, a wonderful Brazilian percussionist, creative, inventive, exciting, playing instruments I had never seen before. The agogo bell, the berimbau, which is like a long bow, the kashishi. And I said, I wanted to learn to play some of those things because they would fit very well into the world that I was already in. And I went very shy to speak to him. Great. And he said, so he got me started on some of these instruments. And this was before YouTube, when you could just watch YouTube and get started playing some of these instruments. You had to really go to the source and learn from the person that played the instruments to really be able to learn how to get into the world of that sound and be able to play it with your own two hands. He didn't just teach me about drums, because a good teacher just doesn't teach you technique. He taught me about spirit. At that time, he was a student of Krishnamurti. So he was studying some Indian philosophy, and he was very philosophical about music itself. He had some Sufi information that he was utilizing in his playing. And he also was very philosophical about music, not just being your whole life, having a larger view of the world. So every time he was playing, I would go and take a lesson. And that went on for about 2 years. So I'm about 25 years old, and I say to myself, well, he's based in New York, I'm going to move to New York. So I moved to New York, and I hadn't talked to him. And I come to New York City, and I call him up, and he goes, I don't play that jazz anymore. I don't want to play that jazz anymore. I went back to Brazil. I only want to play roots music. I want to play samba. No more McCoy Tyner. No more Keith Jarrett's band. No more Gato Barbieri's band. I want to just play samba. Just the rhythm ensemble. 50 people really laying the rhythm down. No melodic instruments. And I was astonished. I was, what? You know, needle drag across the record. I was like, wait a minute, what about all the jazz? What about all the bossa nova? What about all that sophisticated harmony? No, just the rhythm. And he said, well, you can come next week and come, we're going to have a samba school. Now, a samba school is not really a school like going to a standard kind of school. It's basically a club where everyone gets together and they play the different instruments. So I went, there were about 50 of us jammed into a basement on 1 Morton Street in the West Village of Manhattan. Above us was an exotic pet store. So every time the drums would stop, we would just hear crickets. They fed the lizards. I went, and a friend of mine had told me, oh, you want to go and play the bass drum. You don't want to play this little stuff. You don't want to mess with that stuff. Go right to the surdo drum, the bass drum. Now, the surdo drum is an enormous drum. Like you can barely get your arms around it. You wear it off the front of you, and it's called a surdo because surdo in Portuguese means deaf. Now, you can interpret it 2 ways. It's either that the drum makes you deaf or that the deaf people can sense it. But because we're talking about thrum, I still hear the thrum of that music in my ears. And what had happened in that time is that Thrum had gone through an emotional transformation. Instead of this sort of extremely creative, inventive, philosophical, solitary person on stage, he was now the tyrant leader of a big drum ensemble of 50 people jammed into a basement, beating bass drums at the top volume, with a lot of people playing metal things and shaker things and things that you beat like this, and kind of all playing together and making it work. So I got the back line, and there were 9 guys and me. Now I need to tell you that now a lot of women play percussion. And there's groups like PAULA, and you see a lot of women playing bass drums. At this time, I was the only one in New York that I know of that was doing this kind of thing. Now there were women playing drum set. This is not drum set. This is a big drum off the front of you, and you're laying it down. But in the beginning, I said that I was going to devote this tale to gravity. And that's what you do. You're summoning gravity up and laying it into that drum. But my relationship with Thrum had really changed, because he didn't just do this on his own. Thrum now had an accomplice. He had a musical partner that was leading this project with him. And this project was called PAULA, which means foot of the bull. And they wanted the rhythm to be like the foot of the bull, very solid, very deep. So that's what it was. So there I was in the line. And the way that it works is that the drums, the 9 drums would go boom, and I would go boom, because my drum was tuned higher. So it was like, ba, 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 da, ga, 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 boom, 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 and I was the only one playing the high note. But I was very excited, and my hand would be streaming at the end of the night from blisters and things. But that didn't make a difference to me. So I did this, and Thrum didn't really give me too much guidance. I was kind of on my own. He had sort of built a wall of frost between he and I, because this was another thing. And this is important in my tale to say that not everyone that does something great and beautifully and creative is able to teach it or to be able to lead other people in doing it. Like not every great musician makes a good band leader. And this is very much the case in my tale. Okay, now Thrum, I know you're no longer in this realm, but if you're listening, I hope that you understand why this tale must be told. And we have discussed this since the time of this happening. But I need to tell everybody what happened, because I have to bear witness to my life. Okay, so this goes on for a while. It's pretty great with the big ensemble. We play the Halloween parade in the West Village when it used to wind through the streets before it was the big thing that it is now. It used to be more of like a insular thing going through the little, streets, and we end up over on the West Side Highway. And I loved it. When I play that bass drum, I had no more troubles. I had no more chatter in my head. It was just me and the beat. And that was about to change. Because after one of our rehearsals with the big ensemble, Thrum's sidekick, who I will call the Frog, comes up to me and he goes, "Paula, I have to speak to you about something. We want you to join the small band." The small band had about 7 people in it. We were working a lot. He goes, "Oh, and there'll be so much stuff for you if you join us. Lots of girls for us, lots of guys for you, lots of cocaine, lots of parties, lots of good times here in the late 1980s in New York. You're going to be having a great time." I didn't have a great time. It was a torture, because Thrum had turned into a maniac. He was like, and Thrum says to me, "If you join the project, there is one law. You must smile all the time. This is not jazz. This is samba. So even if you're suffering, even if your head is streaming, even if you had to jump up on a million stages in a circus costume, You have to smile all the time. Because not only, now, we normally wore white. When you play samba, you wear white. It's just a thing. It's what we do. That's why I'm in white tonight. Oh, no. Not when I joined the small band, I had to wear a unitard. Have any of you ever worn a unitard? It's like what they wear in modern dance or ballet. A unitard. A lilac unitard. A one-piece stretchy thing that shows everything while you're suffering and beating this drum. And not only that, we had to like jump up on stages. We had to run down the stairs. We had to like go in the middle of a nightclub where everybody's sweating. We had to like push the drums through. And then we had to wait 2 hours at the end of the night to get paid very patiently while the money was counted. And because I was the last in, I was the last paid, because I was the last hired. So this went on for a while. And then Thrum started to change even more. And he decided that what he wanted to do, this is something that people do. I don't want to disillusion. We've got young folk here. I don't want to disillusion you. But what happens sometimes is people that lead things like to set people against each other. Or they like to get you angry so that you do your best work when you're angry. So he started to get inside the head of the people. That's why you know we did this. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And you know so, like for example, we would do a thing. We'd be in a line and everybody, oh, I forgot to tell you also, the tempo of the small band was not the tempo of the big band. The big band was kind of dee, 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 dee. We were swinging like that all the time. Oh no, the big band was like this. It was so fast, you felt like your head would burst. So we're playing really fast. There I am in the unitard. We're jumping over down the stairs and down the stairs, and this and that and this and that. And then what we would do is we get in a line, and one person would move forward to solo, and then the rest of the band would step back, and they would get out there and they'd play their solo, and then the band would come forward, and then we would play, and then the next person would solo. Well, he was doing things like one guy came out to take a snare solo, and he had us all leave the stage and not come back. And the poor guy is playing, and he's like, after like 5 minutes. What he did to me, it took a while to get over it. Well, I was playing, right? And I've been playing for a couple of years, you know. Comes up to me, he goes, just in my ear, so that only I can hear it. He said, you think that you know what you're doing. You know nothing. You have no right to hold that drum. You have no right to hold that drumstick. You don't know what you do. So of course, if you're playing, you really start to get aggressive, you know, to play. And I think soon after that, I quit for the first time. Yet I was lured back in a second time, and then I quit the second time after that. But what I learned from that experience was I learned how not to lead. I learned how not to treat people if I was in power. I learned how to be true to my art so that I didn't let my art become corrupted with outside forces. I learned to be honest with myself. I learned to be honest with my path. And Thrum, my great teacher, did teach me that even if I picked up a piece of paper and I played it, play it with conviction, play it with strength, and give it all I got. He said there are no toys in percussion. You know, people go, oh yeah, you got all your percussion toys. He goes, there are no toys. When you pick it up, you play it with conviction. And you play it as seriously as if you were playing timpani in the orchestra. Well, years after, I wrote to him, and we were connected on Facebook. And 10 years ago, I get a note from him. And he says, I want to tell you, I'm very proud of you. You've done so much. He said, but it's always very important that you mention your teachers. And from one of your teachers. So may his spirit rest easy. May my spirit rest easy. May our spirits rest easy. I end my story.
He's gonna go next, and we're going to a little break.
You need a break?
I think we're trying to. We're gonna take a little break.
Okay, should I speak?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you said it already? Okay, we're gonna take a little break, 5-minute break, and so please help yourself to whatever beverage you choose at your own home, if you're at home. Here we have some beverages here in the gallery, so help yourselves.
We're drinking coffee.
Can you do something about,
Wherever you get the wine. Can you unmute the audience so they can talk to each other during the break? So we'll be about 5 minutes, folks. You know.
Okay. Hi, welcome back. We are in the second half of our storytelling night. And that was Paula Jean Bennett. Thank you very much. That was a great story. And our next storyteller is Richard X Bennett, who has been a friend of mine for a long time, a piano player and composer, and writes great music. He's also written articles for various magazines like Doobie Doobie Doo, and he's got a new album out called RXB3, which was released by the Ubuntu British jazz label in May of 2021, which is that's a pretty cool thing to have a record released in all this. But I have to read you one of the reviews that he got in All About Jazz magazine, which I wish I'd written. Says, the love child of Ramsey Lewis and Nora Jones with a head stuffed full of mescaline. Please welcome Richard X Bennett.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I was talking to one of the hosts of the show, Jacqueline, just before we started it. She said, whatever you do, make sure that your story has a beginning, and it has a middle, and it has an end. So I'm thinking I'm going to do her one better, and I'm going to add a prelude to this story.
Yes.
So here is the prelude. The prelude is a couple of years ago, I was on a concert tour of India, and after each concert, there would always be a selfie line. So you would go and you'd get your picture taken everywhere with everybody. And if people want to ask the questions, they ask you questions. Thank you, Conchest. And people would want to ask me questions. And so anyways, I was getting my picture taken, and this woman said to me, I said, I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask you. I said, go ahead, ask me. And she says, how did you get the scar on your arm? And I was like, okay, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it. So the next night I was playing in Mumbai, and I finished, and I did the selfie line, and another guy comes up to me and says, how did you get the scar on your arm? So for the rest of the tour, I wore like a tattoo sleeve over my arm, so you couldn't see the scar anymore, because it hadn't really occurred to me to talk about it anymore. So having said that, that is the prelude to this story about what inspires me. I'm a big fan of Charles Dickens, and he always starts the story right at the very beginning. So my story starts with the world was created billions of years ago. And then we move forward, and I was born. And our story starts here. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and many people consider Canada to be a dystopian nightmare, but actually for myself, I kind of liked it. There's hockey, there's curling, there's Canadian cheese, there's many good things that people enjoy about Canada, and I have nothing bad to say about it. And so I was just sort of like a regular kid. And when I first went to high school, I had a Swiss Army knife, and that was a craze at the time. And everybody would pull out their knives, and they'd have the can openers and the different thing and the knife. And so I was playing with a friend of mine whose name was Sheldon Tong one day, and we were doing mumbly peg, where you go and put your knife in between people's fingers, and I hit him in the finger, and I cut him a little, and he got really angry and stabbed me here. And as a result, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of blood. That's a lot of blood. And it was around 20 stitches to clean it up. And I still have the scar to this day. And of course, everybody was very upset. You know, my mother was upset. This guy's parents were upset. And this guy, he still ended up being a friend. And I was just like, whoa, that's a lot of blood. But my mom thought I was traumatized, and maybe I was traumatized. So it was almost summertime. So she said, you know what? I think you need to get away from this dangerous city of Toronto where bad things are happening to you. And I'm going to send you on a wilderness trip. And I was like, that does not sound good. Because I really hate camping. I hate camping with a passion. And these are the things I hate about it. And I'm going to have to look over on my list because there's so many of them. I don't like pitching the tent. I don't like sleeping in the tent. I don't like gathering firewood. I don't like making the fire. I don't like eating s'mores. I don't like mosquitoes, horseflies, deer flies, black flies, ticks. And most of all, and this is the most crucial thing, I really hate going to the bathroom in the wild. I really would much prefer to be in civilization. So I didn't enjoy any of this 3-week trip. However, I did discover what I really love. And what I really love is canoeing. And that is the end of the beginning of my story. Now we're at the middle of my story. There are many strokes that I enjoy in canoeing. I might have to look back a little. There's the J stroke, the sweep, the draw, first draw, and the feather. And I like the birds flying over the water. I like my reflection in the water. I like the endless rhythm, doing the same thing over and over and over and over. I like the synchronicity with the other paddler. If the other person who is paddling the canoe is really good, I enjoy that very much. And what I most like is that it calmed my mind, because my mind was full of a lot of thoughts, and most of them had nothing to do with either Canada or the world around me, and people were accusing me of being distracted. But when I was canoeing, I was not distracted because I was so much just thinking about the canoe. And canoeing is something that has inspired me to this very day. I'm actually a connoisseur of paddling styles, and I'm really excited to have this forum so I can bore you all as I explain why the stern paddler shouldn't change sides, how the paddler should always be on opposite sides, and the correct technique for paddling a canoe by yourself. Did I hear somebody ask me what the correct technique is? Yes, I will tell you now. I will tell you now. Sit in the front, but face the back. And then you want to lean over as far as you can, get as much of the canoe out of the water and leaning as far over like that. So you're always on danger of tipping over. And that's a big part of it. And there's a lot of the skill. And there's many other nuances that are even more arcane, like why should you use a short paddle rather than a long paddle? Why is a wooden canoe better than a plastic canoe? It's for the same reason that a real piano is better than an electric piano, and it's also like the same reason. So these sort of things. And I continued on this tour, and I would also like to say, I don't particularly like portaging the canoe, which is carrying the canoe. I don't really like getting in the canoe, and I don't really getting out of the canoe. The only part I like about it is paddling, but that part I like. And when I got back from the trip, I was thinking of becoming an Olympic canoeist, because actually I'd had a cousin who competed in the 1960 Rome Games. And but unfortunately, I also had an interest in the piano, and that kind of took over my life. So I became a piano player instead. So I just continued canoeing by being a canoe instructor for several summers after that. And that's the end of the middle part of the story. And now we're to the end of the story. And we have to go 20 years later. And 20 years later, I got hired to play a piano concert at the Mohawk Mountain House Resort, which is a resort that is around, 60 miles north of New York. And their motto, I don't know if it's official or not, is the newlywed and the nearly dead. And early in the day before the show, I found that they had canoeing. So I was paddling around in Lake Mohawk, and I was showing off a little. I was doing, and even the lifeguard called over me, says, "No, you can't paddle solo like that." And I was like, "No, really, it's going to be okay." And then there were two women, and their canoe was sort of stuck in the reeds, and they were lost. They couldn't figure out how to get out. So I go canoe paddling over, and I shouted instructions at them. I'm like, "Do this, do your J stroke, do your sweep, do your draw, do your backward paddle." And they got out, and then they paddled safely back to the dock, and all was well. And later that day, as I was sound checking the piano for the concert, one of the women saw me, and she said, "The canoe instructor also plays piano." And I thought, that's exactly right. That's who I really am. And this piano thing is just totally secondary, and what a shame. And even now, the medium tempo paddling rhythm that I enjoy to do, it guides me as I play music, if I'm walking on Coney Island Avenue, or if I'm riding the subway. And I like to think of the birds and the shoreline and the trees and the synchronicity of the paddlers. And in my mind, and often in my dreams, I'm still on a lake in a canoe. And that's the end of my story. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to sit down since you sat down. Thank you very much. That was the first time we had a prelude, so thank you for that. Somebody brought visual items one time, so we've kind of run the gamut. And I do believe that you are our first married couple to tell a story. So thank you for that. I had to ask permission to make sure that it was okay to say you were married. And I heard it was okay. All right, well, thank you. We are not done with the evening, but we are here at Open Source Gallery in Brooklyn. I am from the Bronx, so I have no idea where we are in Brooklyn. My good friend Golda always says, "What are the cross streets?" I don't know, it's just near like some kind of bridge. Okay, so I am going to introduce to you, before we come to our last storyteller, Monica Wurrer. I never said that before, I'm sorry. And she is, because I'm sure I said it wrong. She is the director of the gallery, and she's going to tell you about where we are. Tell them where we really are. And I want to say before we go on, it's just lovely that we are almost at pre-pandemic capacity. There are people here, the doors are open. It's a lovely, cool summer night. And I can't wait to tell my kids how decadent I am. So, Monica, come tell us about
Hello. So we are in South Slope. We are on 17th Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, very close to Park Slope, really. But technically in Sunset Park. But we are in a gallery that's called Open Source Gallery. We have part of our installation in the back of us. It's by Sarah A. Brooke. Like this weekend is the last weekend to see the show. It's a beautiful show. So we are open tomorrow and Sunday, 12 to 6 p.m. We have more music coming up every Thursday. And we have the big race, the big soapbox race. We do this every year. Kids are building cars. We race the street right in front of the gallery. So 17th Street between 5th and 6th on August 28th. That's the next big thing coming up.
Hey, thank you. Okay, you may make me come back to Brooklyn to see the soapbox. Sounds very exciting. I've seen pictures. And I want you to know that there's a serious slope. This is one of the biggest hills. First night I came here, I was like, oh my God. So the kids are going to have loads of fun. Okay, so our final storyteller is Marcus C. John. And Marcus is my final storyteller for this year. Lily and I will end our hosting year in August, and we have had a blast. I've asked every friend I have, and children, son-in-laws. And we're looking forward to the finale because we're going to invite everybody back for to tell a short story. So we're looking forward to that. We'll get more information. All right, so our final storyteller of the night is a poet and an author and musician hailing from Yonkers. Yay! The preeminent poet of Yonkers began writing at the early age of 8 and spent his teenage years and 20s on stage. In 2021, he was featured on PBS television reading his original poem, Smudges, in celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I'm just going to interrupt to say, Marcus is so cool. I did not find out he did this until he gave me the damn bio. Okay. In 2019, Marcus released The Book of John, a collection of poem, prose, and rhyme, and has since traveled the United States with his work. Mr. John has taught workshops and performed at various universities, including Utica College, I'm gonna skip those, etc., as well as reputable schools and organizations, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He is the poet in residence at the Hudson River Museum, and he has performed at the Master's School. Marcus C. John writes with an open heart while bringing in the knowledge and wisdom from his experience in life to tell an honest and relatable story. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Marcus C. John. Yay!
Yes. Okay, so go with that same level. Sun glass. Okay. I think I'm gonna sit down this evening.
Yeah, that's whatever you like. Like that?
Yeah, this is how I look on the. All right, I see it. Perfect. A little closer. Okay. I want to thank Jackie for that introduction and open sources gallery, correct? All right, thank you for the invitation tonight. Thank you for everybody for coming out, and so the other storytellers, everyone did well. I was happy to hear them. Okay, so like Jackie said, I'm a poet, I'm an MC and a musician. So this is very new for me. So I was happy to get the invitation, but I'm going to be reading stories and telling stories that introduce my poem. So like Richard, I do have a beginning, middle, and end. There's a point to everything that I'm talking about. So I hope that it relates to everyone. All right, let me just get it together here. It's already together. We're always all together. Growing up the youngest of 7, I was adorned as the baby of the family. With a 15-year gap between myself and the next sibling up, I was everything from a surprise to a blessing to a bombshell. The next morning, the Challenger space shuttle exploded just 73 seconds into its launch from the Earth. From infancy, I recognized how perishable joy could be. At an early age, I had an advanced understanding of love and compassion that often amazed and frightened my family. I knew both my parents loved me, but somehow their experiences always limited their affection. They were both well off, and they both had 2 cars. My mom a blue sedan that she always played Luther Vandross out. My dad owned a green Jeep that he also used for work. It had commercial plates and only one seatbelt in the back. One day we were all headed out. It was me, my older sister Vanna, and both my parents. They buckled me into that one seatbelt in the back, and then they buckled in themselves in the front, but then my sister Vanna got in the back seat. At this point, I was only 3 years old. For some reason, I still can't remember why, but in that moment, I started wailing, like, we can't take off, we can't go anywhere. Vanna doesn't have a seatbelt. and both my parents were kind of like, pushing me off and let's go on with it. But I remember like throwing a fit, and it was like a big deal. Like, we cannot go anywhere until Berna has her seatbelt on. Finally, my father, probably growing impatient, barked on me and said, like, what is the reason for all this protest? I remember that specifically because my dad always spoke to me like a general. I told them, wearing your seatbelt shows that you love. If you stay safe in dangerous situations, you love your family and you love yourself. We ended up taking the car that day. I realized at an early age, anyone could be a student. My mother secretly resented me for being intelligent. She thought I didn't notice, but she had this fear that I'd be smarter than her. My father always wanted me to be successful and brilliant and anything but gay. At an early age, I learned to mask my cognitive dissonance, my deductive reasoning, and my sexuality for safety in a dangerous situation. That following year, I started pre-K, and I always hated school, but I loved to read and write. I wanted to write you a formal letter, but always had trouble scribing. Formal letters begin with dear, and by putting that before your name, I knew I would be lying. A book describes our tale more accurately. With the pre-adolescent prologue, I was amazed by your cover and iridescent design. Followed every direction on your literary trail, then held onto your sentences like Braille. My love was blind. Eyes too green to see between the lines that were drawn. Knew you were the author of previous muses scorned, but I was the main character in this story. Stormy the conditions of our setting, your mood choppy like the sea when it rages. Hoping the ship would sail as smooth as paper. Instead, I'd watch the tide turn like pages. Searching for a true definition, usually settling for the synonym, we called it home. What would seem like change always remained the same. You were a palindrome. I had it backward. Saw this dog as a god who tried to fetch my Holy Spirit, dug a ditch inside my heart so deep nobody could repair it. I was given all the tools but didn't know how to use them. Received attention and abuse but confused them. You used affection as a noose, the truth was gruesome. Hung on to the idea that I could keep reading into this chapter of my life that no longer defined me. Finally penned the appendix of our swoop slope and watch it sink. Written in the blackest of inks, despair was tattooed on my skin. These the markings of your kin, a metaphor beyond your ken. An orphaned wings once clipped by cants, now flying free on the wings of Kens. Let's make amends. Remove these burdens from our backs, then travel back to understand. You made a sun set at dawn on the peak of his own horizon. I've spent too many years compromising. I focus in on only all the positives felt. God bless the child that has his own sense of self. Woo! Then, at not such an early age, I still found myself dealing with love, class, audiences, and going along for the ride. I was dating men with all this unhealed family trauma, dragging heaps of baggage into every relationship and partnership, but never weighing down the lighthearted. I honored the innocent, always remembered that love was vulnerable and to protect it if you can. For their own good, I would push them away from this dangerous situation. One time, or 2 times, or 5 times, I ended up with this guy just like me. Another war-ridden vet whose heart had already experienced death. They hid their scars as well as their identity, always playing dumb to diffuse the intimacy, celebrating the intercourse, yet wishing they were anything but gay, resenting my comfort. They thought I didn't notice. As I began to notice these patterns, the shape was like a spiral, representative of the chakra system. 7 points of energy within your body that control your physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual well-being. The 3rd chakra element is fire. There you must face your dark side and internal desires and your reflection in order to move up into the fourth chakra, the heart, whose element is air, and you begin to love. But you have to start with yourself by breaking through those mirrors. It started off like any other morning. We were both wearing black, bodies still as cadavers, your face red like an obituary. My eyes stared into the sarcophagus of our love. Even though it remained sleep, I was fully awake, and this was awake. The feeling of what it means to fail. Reactions were off the Richter scale, shaking. I pretended not to lose balance even though the ground was quaking. You, sturdy as a door frame, safe lapse. We both had different versions of support. I was yours, and so were you. In the beginning, you were smooth and clean, but underneath as weak as glass. Perception blinded me to this reflection of my past, mesmerized by the allure while the shine disguised the residue, framed to be the perfect image. Funny how mirrors can play tricks on you. Shattered, I pieced together the parts of the road that brought us here. Remembered I played passenger as you stared away from commitment. Forgot my tainted heart was placed in park, but you were parallel, then put it in gear. I take the blame for not buckling up. We were designed for the crash, but the speed was addictive, and I was afflicted to how you maneuvered the wheel. This lane of seduction turning into desire only made both our flames burn higher. It was sweltering. The heat caused combustion, eruptions just from touches, clothes were torched to the scene. At our peak, bodies moved like the energy of steam, two freaks off the leash that could keep the momentum. Crazy pillow talk between the sheets, it was bedlam. A roller coaster of emotions, rode every ride in the park just for our amusement. But this trip had no theme, it was confusion. Trance-like in a state of free falling with nothing to grasp, it was more like an illusion. A funhouse, reflective of our principles, but we saw this act before. It's funny how mirrors can play tricks on you. The breakdown, slowly leading to a breakup, knowing I needed to break through these mirrors. You, the shadow of who I want to share my life with. Your ego, blocked the rays my heart was shining like a cloud of shame. The strain on my love became too heavy. Jealousy rained on our parade. Tears fell like confetti. I had to remember myself complete, not broken. Recall back to a time when I was the prize, not just the token. And sentiment wasn't seen as sacrifice. And truth didn't cause turmoil. My fire burned for you. Fortunately, it was lighting the rest of my path, away out of the tall grass. Our love always had two sides. It reminded me of a forked tongue. Rattled by our reality, my movements became constricted. Present conditions squeezed the life out of me. Courage slowly slithered up my spine as your disregard was swallowing me whole, completely unhinged. I wrapped my mind around the freedom and shed your memory like skin. As an adult, I take accountability for my healing and journey. I understand my being. I walk in love. I honor who I am and who I am becoming. I am not on this earth. I am of this earth, an alchemist, reminding myself of my purpose and others as well. As I let go of what I was taught, I begin to remember what I already knew. You are a spiritualist. Sow the land, tend to the grounds with nurture, respect boundaries like nature. Place your stones around the garden, treat the soil with care. Remember why you are here. Cleanse the water, make sure it stays purified. Drink only when necessary. Provide to those who come to you. Try not to chase the thirsty. Remember you are worthy. Fan the flame, but don't mock it. Use it for guidance, for courage, and to inspire. Shine your light. Lead them out of the dark, but remember your heart. Filter the air. Avoid the polluted. Detoxify if needed. Seep with pride. Be gusty. Work well with others. Don't forget about your sisters. Remember your brothers. Stay mindful. Space exists inside us as well. Spirit-filled, made of stars, moon, and planet, suns on earth, beings beyond, humans becoming, souls remembering and retaining. These gods are within. This isn't subtle. Evolution never is. Neither is love. Neither is truth. But we stand in it all, living examples of something more, something radical, something great, something magical. We just have to remember. All right, my name is Marcus John. Thank you very much for your time this evening. My book is called The Book of John, a collection of rhymes, prose, and poetry. I have copies on me. If anybody is interested, I will sign it for you. Thank you to the online world for tuning in tonight, and thank you, Open Source Gallery, for having me. I appreciate everybody tonight. Peace.
Goodbye.
Our next one's the 28th, right?
The 20, is it
27th?
our, okay, well, they can only see like our shirts.
You're putting the cheek down.
Okay, boy, this is sisterhood right here, okay? No, we're good. Thank you to Indigo. Thank you to give your names.
Paula and Richard and Marcus John. It was great. And
Thank
we
you
have one
guys
more
for having
storytelling
me.
Night, last February in August.
The last February and August. We're drinking a lot of coffee here. So,
I see.
the last February.
I left my
and
link in
August,
the chat
August.
just in case anyone wants to purchase.
Yeah, that's true. We are going to do our finale. We invite you to come out, come to Brooklyn, come hang out with us. Maybe my last time in Brooklyn. No, I don't think so. But in any case, we are happy to have you here. We are grateful to our storytellers tonight. And we are looking forward to seeing you in August. Thank you. Last February. All right, thank you and good night to everybody. Thank you.